The Young and the Restless spoilers shock. In Genoa City, danger rarely announces itself directly, but subtle warnings and emotional unraveling often foreshadow disaster. The latest updates surrounding The Young and the Restless have placed Billy Abbott squarely in the spotlight once again, hinting at the possibility that his turbulent choices and reckless patterns may soon collide with fate in the most tragic way imaginable. Whispers from behind the scenes suggest that a major crisis is brewing, and fans are bracing themselves for a dramatic turn that could leave lasting scars on one of Genoa City's most complicated families. The hints of a looming medical emergency point toward a storyline that could culminate in a shocking car accident, with Billy at the center of the storm. And the build-up has been carefully layered to maximize tension. Billy's life has always been a mix of brilliance and self-destructs, his charm as undeniable as his penchant for chaos, and lately, the balance has tipped dangerously toward collapse. His choices have become increasingly erratic, his relationships strained, and his judgment clouded by impulses that even he struggles to control. It is not just his business ventures or personal vendettas that are in jeopardy, but his very well-being, as each reckless move seems to push him closer to disaster. Those closest to him, especially Jack Abbott, have started voicing their fears more urgently, and Jack's warnings have carried an ominous weight, painting a picture of a man hurtling toward catastrophe without brakes to stop the descent. The possibility of a car accident is not merely a sensational plot twist, it is thematically resonant for Billy's character. His life has often been defined by speed, recklessness, and the illusion that he can outrun his demons, but soap opera logic suggests that running too fast eventually leads to a crash. The metaphor is being set up in dialogue, in character interactions, and in narrative beats that highlight his unraveling mental state. Jack, ever the protective older brother, has been portrayed as both worried and frustrated, caught between trying to guide Billy and recognizing that his warnings are falling on deaf ears. Jack's sense of foreboding, his repeated insistence that Billy is headed down a disastrous path, cannot be ignored. Soap operas rarely lay such groundwork without payoff, and in this case, the foreshadowing almost screams that a shocking accident is waiting around the corner. Whether the crash is literal or metaphorical remains to be seen, but the mounting tension leans heavily toward a physical event that could land Billy in the hospital, fighting for his life. The build-up toward this potential tragedy has been layered across multiple fronts. Billy has been losing control not only of his professional standing but also of his personal clarity. His relationships have been tested, his alliances weakened, and his decisions more reckless than calculated. Viewers have seen him spiral before, but this time there is a sharp urge, a sense that the writers are pushing him toward a climactic event with higher stakes than ever before. The whispers of an impending medical emergency tie neatly into this trajectory. If Billy were to crash his car, the fallout would not just be about his survival but also about how the Abbott family, already fragile in their internal dynamics, would handle yet another crisis. Jack's role as the family anchor would be tested further, forcing him to balance leadership at Abbott with the emotional devastation of potentially losing his brother. The narrative weight of a hospital emergency also cannot be overstated. Soap opera hospitals are crucibles of drama, places where secrets come out, alliances shift, and raw emotions are exposed. If Billy ends up unconscious, on the edge of life and death, it would be a prime setup for characters to confess regrets, reaffirm bonds, and even ignite new feuds. Imagine the ripple effect: Jack's guilt for not preventing the inevitable, Lily's torment over unresolved feelings, Jill's fierce determination to protect her son, and even Victoria's conflicted heart as she is pulled back into concern for the father of her children despite their tumultuous history. The hospital setting would also invite chance encounters with other Genoa City residents, weaving multiple storylines into the fabric of Billy's crisis, which is exactly how soap operas thrive. What makes this potential accident so compelling is the way it ties into Billy's psychological profile. He has long been depicted as a man wrestling with impulses he cannot fully tame, as if he is at war with himself every single day. His gambling, his risky decisions, his inability to settle into stability, these traits have made him both magnetic and tragic. A car accident caused by reckless driving, distraction, or even emotional turmoil would not only be consistent with his history, but also serve as a dramatic representation of his inner chaos. The crash would be both literal and symbolic, the physical wreckage mirroring the wreckage of his choices, the twisted metal reflecting the twisted pathways of his psyche. From a narrative standpoint, a medical emergency of this scale offers the writer's fertile ground for long-term arcs. If Billy survives but is severely injured, there is room for rehabilitation storylines, psychological growth, and the testing of relationships under pressure. If his memory is affected, the show could dive into plots of identity, reinvention, or manipulation by others seeking to take advantage of his vulnerability. Alternatively, if the accident exposes deeper health issues, perhaps a head injury that triggers neurological complications, drama could extend into medical territory that challenges the family in new ways. In every scenario, the story opens doors for interconnected drama, which is the lifeblood of The Young and the Restless. The speculation surrounding Jack's warnings is especially important. Jack's instincts have often proven correct, and his ability to sense looming disaster adds weight to the idea that the writers are telegraphing something major. His fear that Billy is on a road to ruin feels less like hyperbole and more like narrative foreshadowing, deliberately placed to prepare the audience for what is to come. When Jack's concern reaches a fever pitch, it often signals that the danger is real, imminent, and unstoppable. This framing sets the stage for maximum emotional impact, as viewers are already primed to share Jack's dread. Should the accident occur, Jack's "I told you so" moment would not be satisfying but heartbreaking, cementing his role as the brother who saw disaster coming but could not prevent it. Of course, one cannot ignore the possibility that the so-called medical emergency might take an unexpected form. Soap operas often delight in twisting expectations, and while a car accident is the most obvious interpretation of the clues, the crisis could manifest differently. Perhaps Billy collapses from exhaustion or a hidden medical condition, his body finally rebelling against the stress and recklessness. Perhaps his accident is tied to another character's storyline, creating a shocking collision of plots that no one saw coming. Yet, the repeated imagery of being on a road to disaster and headed for a crash feels too deliberate to dismiss. Soap opera writers love their metaphors, and in this case, the metaphor may very well become reality in the most devastating way possible. As fans brace for what lies ahead, the tension lies not just in whether Billy will crash but in how the fallout will ripple across Genoa City. The Abbott family could be fractured or united by the crisis, business rivalries could be temporarily suspended or inflamed, and romantic entanglements could be reignited or shattered. The hospital corridors, always a breeding ground for whispered confrontations and teary reconciliations, may soon echo with the footsteps of worried Abbotts, Newmans, and Chancellors alike. The stakes are enormous, not only for Billy's future but for the delicate balance of power and emotion within the show's central families. Ultimately, what makes this storyline so compelling is its inevitability. Billy's life has always felt like a ticking time bomb, and now the fuse seems shorter than ever. The hints of danger, the warnings from Jack, the whispers of a medical emergency will point toward a climax that will shake Genoa City to its core. Whether Billy survives with scars, loses something precious, or emerges transformed, one thing is certain: the coming weeks on The Young and the Restless promise to deliver the kind of high-stakes, emotionally charged drama that keeps fans glued to their screens. The only question that remains is how deep the crash will cut, and who will be left picking up the pieces when the dust finally settles. The Young and the Restless has always excelled at weaving subtle dialogue, foreshadowing, and character-driven choices into a tapestry of suspense. And the newest hints surrounding Billy Abbott are some of the most ominous yet. Longtime viewers know that Jack Abbott's words often carry double weight, and his recent comments about disaster looming over his brother could be more than just protective warnings. They could serve as narrative prophecy. When Jack mentions a crash or suggests Billy is speeding down a dangerous road, soap opera logic suggests that these words are not random but carefully planted clues pointing toward a future tragedy. In this case, the possibility of a devastating car accident looms large, and the question is no longer whether Billy might end up in the hospital but rather how, when, and under what circumstances his downfall will come. Billy's history makes the setup even more convincing. His tendency to self-medicate with alcohol has been a recurring thread in his life, and lately, those patterns have begun to resurface. He has been shown drinking more heavily to numb the sting of personal failures and the pressure of looming conflicts, a dangerous cocktail of emotional turmoil and impaired judgment. In a town like Genoa City, where everyone watches and waits for weakness to exploit, Billy's drinking is more than just a personal demon, it's a setup for disaster. The possibility that he could get behind the wheel intoxicated, distracted by the chaos of his life, and lose control of his car is frighteningly plausible. The consequences of such a decision would not only imperil his life but ripple out through every relationship he has, forcing loved ones and enemies alike to confront their own guilt, rage, and complicated feelings. Yet, as with most storylines on The Young and the Restless, nothing is ever so straightforward. While a drunk driving accident would be tragic enough, whispers of sabotage have introduced a far more sinister possibility. What if Billy's crash is not entirely his fault? What if the brakes on his car were tampered with, or some other mechanical failure was deliberately engineered by someone with a grudge? Suddenly, the accident shifts from being a symbol of Billy's self-destruct to a criminal mystery that throws the entire town into turmoil. The idea of sabotage immediately casts suspicion on familiar adversaries, and one name that stands out is Kane Ashby. The rivalry between Kane and Billy has long been charged with bitterness, envy, and unresolved betrayal, and with Kane's shady connections, it wouldn't be unthinkable for him to orchestrate such a plan. Even if Kane himself were not directly responsible, merely the suggestion that he might have directed his mechanic to interfere with Billy's car would be enough to ignite scandal. In soap opera storytelling, the truth matters less than perception, and once suspicion takes root, it spreads like wildfire. The thought of Jack discovering that Kane might have endangered Billy would be explosive. Jack's protective instincts toward his brother would manifest as righteous fury, and the Sabotage feud could spiral into an all-out war. Michael Baldwin's name also surfaces in whispers surrounding this storyline, though in a different, more complex light. Michael has always been a lawyer who skirts the fine line between legal maneuvering and moral compromise, and if Kane's plans or reputation were threatened by the accident, Michael might be dragged into the mess unwillingly. While he would never deliberately harm Billy, he could still find himself accused of covering for Kane or manipulating evidence to protect a client. Once Jack suspects foul play, logic and restraint may fly out the window, and accusations could swirl against both Kane and Michael, regardless of whether either man is truly guilty. For Michael, a man who has worked hard to maintain his integrity, the cloud of suspicion could be devastating, reigniting old doubts about his loyalties and judgment. If Billy's accident leaves him gravely injured or even in a coma, the fallout will not be confined to legal and familial feuds. It would open the floodgates of emotion for Sally Spectre, whose relationship with Billy has been complicated, fractured, yet undeniably passionate. Sally has often been torn between her ambitions, her pride, and her feelings for Billy, but nothing crystallizes priorities faster than tragedy. The image of Sally by Billy's hospital bed, pleading with him to return to her, would be a soap opera scene of the highest order, all heartbreaking, and filled with the possibility of redemption. Sally's anguish, her whispered promises to stand by him if he just wakes up, could reignite their bond in a way that no ordinary reconciliation could. A hospital crisis strips away pretenses, and if Billy were to awaken to the sight of Sally's unwavering devotion, it could shift his entire perspective on what truly matters in life. The drama would not end there. If Billy awakens changed, whether due to a near-death epiphany or actual physical trauma such as memory loss or neurological complications, his transformation could reset the board in Genoa City. Imagine a Billy who emerges determined to focus on Sally, on family, on rebuilding rather than destroying. Such a version of him would shake up existing dynamics, pulling him away from destructive rivalries and toward a path of stability that many thought impossible. Or conversely, imagine a Billy who awakens fractured, vulnerable to manipulation, and uncertain of whom to trust. Either way, the accident becomes not just a plot device but a catalyst for character evolution, something that could redefine Billy's role in the show for months or even years to come. The Abbott family would be deeply shaken by such a turn of events. Jack's guilt and anger would intensify, Jill would lash out to protect her son, and even those on the periphery of Billy's life, Victoria, Lily, Chelsea, would be pulled back into his orbit, forced to reckon with unresolved feelings and lingering connections. Victoria might feel compelled to protect the father of her children, even as she struggles with the complicated web of their shared past. Lily, who has tried to keep her distance, might find her emotions stirred as she recalls the depth of their history together. Each character's reaction would layer additional drama onto the central crisis, ensuring that Billy's accident reverberates far beyond the hospital room. What makes this looming storyline particularly powerful is its duality. On one hand, it could be written as a straightforward cautionary tale about the dangers of drinking, recklessness, and ignoring warnings, with Billy's crash serving as the tragic consequence of his own poor choices. On the other, it could morph into a whodunit mystery, with sabotage, suspicion, and revenge plots expanding the scope of the drama. Either direction or a blend of both promises the kind of gripping, emotional storytelling that the Young and the Restless thrives on. Viewers will tune in not only to see whether Billy survives but to uncover the truth about what really caused his car to spin out of control. As the tension builds, Jack's role as both prophet and protector becomes crucial. His words, once dismissed as the nagging of an older brother, may soon be remembered as chilling foreshadowing. If the crash comes to pass, Jack's grief will be compounded by the haunting realization that he saw it coming but could not stop it. That guilt, paired with the rage he is likely to direct at Kane, Michael, or anyone else connected to the accident, could fuel some of the most explosive confrontations Genoa City has seen in years. Meanwhile, Sally's vigil at Billy's bedside could provide the emotional heartbeat of the storyline, delivering both heartbreak and hope as she begs for his return. The stage is set, the hints are in place, and the sense of inevitability grows with each passing episode. Whether through alcohol-induced recklessness, mechanical sabotage, or a blend of both, Billy Abbott appears to be racing toward a life-altering moment that will leave no corner of Genoa City untouched. Fans should prepare themselves not only for the shock of a crash but for the emotional wreckage that will follow, as love, loyalty, suspicion, and vengeance all collide in the wake of tragedy. For Billy, the question is not simply whether he survives, it is who he will be when he opens his eyes, and how his accident will reshape the future of everyone around him.